Hello, Google.
All right, so we got our three types of irony, and all three of them will be in these two short stories. We've got dramatic irony. We've got verbal irony. And we've got situational irony. Okay, but let's look at the idea of irony itself in a broader term. What is ironic? What does that mean? Does anyone know? Gabby, what does it mean when you say that's ironic?
Like, okay, I say that all the time, but I don't know how to explain it. Like, when someone just crashed a car and was like, you can't drive. Like, that's ironic.
Okay, that's very good, Gabby.
Is that going somewhere?
Well, you're circling the funnel there. It's okay, you're doing pretty good. That was a very Gabby answer, so that's what I was looking for. Okay, how about you, Dylan? What will your definition of ironic be? Someone comes to you and say, wow, that was ironic. Like you see something happen, you go, that was ironic.
Something I wasn't expecting.
Okay, yeah, so irony is that something happens opposite of expectations. The most common that we identify is situational irony. Can anyone think of something that's situationally ironic? Like something happens that's the opposite of what's expected. Go to a war and nobody attacks you. It's the opposite of what you expected. So, for example, you buy an umbrella because it looks stormy outside. And what happens? Right, yeah, you walk outside and the sun comes out. So that's your definition of situational irony. Something that happens, and if you watch Seinfeld, it happens all the time. So the audience is set up to believe that something is going to happen, and the exact opposite happens. So for example, George Costanza, the short balding guy in Seinfeld, he lives this normal life of doing this, and one day he decides to do the exact opposite of everything you'd ordinarily do. Well, by doing so, he gets a really hot chick, and he gets a lot of money, and just everything good happens to him because it does the opposite of what he'd actually do normally. Okay? And that's an example of kind of situational irony. No one would expect that if you did the drastic opposite of everything that you would do, good things would happen to you, right? Like, for example, someone threatens you, and instead of like going, wow, I'm not going to fight him, you beat him mercilessly over the head, and the police just kind of turn a blind eye. Right, that would be a situationally ironic thing. The dramatic irony is a bit different. What is dramatic irony without looking it up? Do you know? Think Julius Caesar. We are the audience watching Julius Caesar. What do we know that Julius Caesar doesn't? That he's going to be stabbed to death. So dramatic irony is, as an audience, we know what the actors, not the actors, excuse me, but the characters don't. Okay, so we all know Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet, ironically, they go through the motions all the way to the end, and then they die. we already know that they're going to die, and so it's a bit ironic in the sense that we know what's happening to them, whereas they don't. Okay. The final one's verbal irony, the one that I like to use a lot. What's the other word for that? Sarcasm, right? And that is basically saying the opposite of what you mean or what you're thinking. Okay. And I would recommend that everybody learn to use verbal irony because you can never get in trouble for verbal irony. You know, you can prove words, but you can't prove intent. So when students like film me, and I'm going like, yeah, you're the smartest kid I know. Well, I'm sure that when you get up out of bed, you take an IQ test, it comes back 180. And so the student's like, wow, he's really calling me stupid. But the words themselves sound like I'm saying that the person's smart. And because a person can't prove intent, therefore, I can't get in trouble. So make sure to utilize verbal irony to the farthest of its ability. It's a great tool to use for good or evil. Okay, so those are the three parts of irony that we will see in these two short stories. One of them is called The Open Window. The other is called Like the Sun. Like the Sun's very short. It's like 2 pages. And it basically deals with truth. And so in it, you have a Indian school teacher who is going to tell truth. It's kind of like that movie with Jim Carrey. What was it? Liar, Liar? Or Liar? Was it? What was the movie with the lawyer who can't tell a lie? It's a Jim Carrey movie. Okay, never mind. It's something like Liar, Liar, or whatever. So anyway, he's a lawyer. He can't tell a lie. He has to tell the truth. Well, this story is the same thing. Like the Sun, it is, the guy goes through the whole day, tells his wife that she cooks bad food, and he tells his school principal, that the principal makes bad music. Okay, and so there are repercussions for it, but at least there's honesty involved. The problem is that honesty is always seen as a positive thing. But if any of you have had a girlfriend before who asks you, do I look fat in these jeans? What happens if you're honest about that statement? You say to her, yes, you look fat in those jeans. What? Yeah, you end up without a girlfriend, right? Or you just end up with a girl screaming at you. So there's negative things that happen to you even when you tell the truth. The second one is even better. It's called An Open Window. And it's about this man who, he just kind of has a sickly body. So he goes out to the European countryside to stay at someone's house for a little while and to kind of recuperate. Well, there's this like 15-year-old girl who greets him. And she comes up with this really crazy story. You have to read it. But she comes up with this very crazy and convincing story that so scares the man that when the family returns, he runs away. And then when the family says to the girl, why did he run away? She has some equally fanciful story about who this man was, and so on. So by lying, she manipulates things, but she seems like such an innocent young little girl. So it's a fun story. Anyway, so those are the two we're going to read today. We've got about 40 minutes or so to read them. Read both, and then in it, I'll tell you what, I'll actually make this 2 things you can talk about. So